What is up, ladies and gentle nerds? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today's episode is brought to you by quarantine. I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere. Let's hang out and play some cards and talk about cards. As long as we're not touching each other's cards because yeah, that is how things spread, and that's no good. Also, you may note for those of you on the video feed enjoying this on YouTube, I do have my 5 o'clock 3 days from now shadow going on. So yeah, go ahead and drink that in. It's delightful, let me tell you. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at a random card, and we are going to talk about it for at least 10 minutes. So that's how it works around here. And today we are looking at Yavimaya Ancients, and that is plural. Note, ancients, not ancient, because there are a lot of different ancient creatures that we see in Magic. This one is plural. We're seeing two on one card here. Ooh, and interestingly enough, there are two different versions of it. This was printed back in Alliances, and it was not uncommon then for them to print out multiple art for individual cards. Some of them are actually really cool in that way. There are a number of them. The first one that comes to mind is actually Armor Thrull. I have a handful of these, and there's one of them that is the darkest picture I think I've ever seen on a Magic card ever. It's scary as hell. So the Armor Thrull is a creature, and I don't remember the exact terminology or the exact stat line right off the top of my head, but it's a creature that costs like 3 to come into the battlefield, and you can sacrifice it and put a +2, no, sorry, a +1/+2 counter on a creature. That's right, not a +1/+1 counter. It's a +1/+2 counter, and you can put that on a different creature that you control. So that's kind of interesting, and the depictions of the Armor Thrull are kind of unique in a couple of different ways. In this particular one, it shows a creature that's cowering in a corner with a look of absolute dread on its face, and you can see that on its back it has a lot of very large plates. And so it looks like it's a creature made of armor, but it's like cowering in fear from someone, and you see it's from the art is actually from the point of view of someone approaching this creature, and in the foreground you see a gloved hand and a dagger. Yeah, like it's clearly this person is coming to kill this thing, and based on the flavor of the card, you can tell it's harvesting the armor off of it. And like that's one of I think four different art pieces on that particular card, and that one is just like really evocative and really it's really creepy and kind of it sticks with you. And then the other pictures I actually only remember because they're not nowhere near as memorable as that one. But that is a big old tangent right off the top because today we are not looking at Armor Thrall. We are looking at Yavimaya Ancients. All right, it is a 2/7 tree folk for 3 generic and 2 green that has pay 1 green +2 -1 until end of turn. That's how it was originally printed. Let's see what the Oracle text is. So you can pay 1 green. Yavimaya Ancients gets +1 -2 until end of turn. All right, so it's a 2/7 for 5. Stat line's not great. Very much a defensive creature, although it does not have defender. Note. It is also a tree folk, which is a tribe. There are other tree folk out there, but there aren't really any good tree folk payoffs or tree folk synergies. So you're probably not building a tree folk synergy or a tree folk tribal deck, unless you're doing it to say you did it, which is one of those things that when we look at these older cards, there are places for that, especially in Commander or like casual kitchen table jank. If you wanted to build a tree folk deck, hey, something like this that's a throwback from an older set is always fun to include. That said, yeah. Oh, and the other benefit is because it's not very good, you can probably get a pretty good condition one of these for very, very cheap. This is probably a 5-10 cent card, and that's always nice. I do like finding those. It also has flavor text. The ancients teach us that if we can but last, we shall prevail. And that quote is attributed to Kesa, elder druid of the Juniper Order. Huh. Okay, that's pretty cool. If we can last, we shall prevail. I do, actually, that flavor fits really nicely with what the card is doing, um, because having a 7 toughness, it's clearly designed to defend. It's clearly designed to hold back and prevent your opponent from coming through and hitting you. So that's pretty cool. And the flip side is you can pay but the most you can pay into this without killing the tree folk, assuming you don't have other synergies and other ways of buffing its power, or sorry, its toughness, you can pay 3 to give it +3 -6, making it a 5/1. So in a weird off in a fringe case, that actually can finish out a game for you. You can deliver a killing blow with the Yavimaya Ancients if your opponent allows that to happen. Actually, one synergy that comes to mind right off the bat is Tetsuko Yumezawa. What is it? Tetsuka Yumezawa Fugitive? I think that's the name. It is a blue card that gives all creatures with power or toughness 1 unblockable. So that could be a fun way to get in for 5 damage late in the game. Now, the mana cost there is very, very high. It's not great, and you have to have a down payment of 5 just to get this guy on the field. So for everything that this card can do, there has been a more efficient and better way to do it printed. So take that for what it's worth. This is one of those cards that is a fun vintage throwback, and if you are wanting to build a casual deck full of fun vintage throwbacks, hey, this could be fun. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The artwork is depicting kind of gnarly, what looks like a gnarly tree kind of reaching forward and wrapping up some kind of, looks like some kind of creature. Looks almost Phyrexian. It's tough to tell with this particular artwork what's going on, but it looks like trees have come alive, rooted in place, but reaching forward and attacking something. So that again, that kind of fits because this creature is a defender. It's not rules, but this creature is clearly designed to be defensive early with an offensive option later. So the idea of trees that have been rooted in place but are stretching forward to attack, that fits. That makes a lot of sense. Let's take a look at the other version of this card. That was actually the part that had originally got me going on Armor Thrull, was the fact that we're looking at multiple artworks here. So this first one is designed by Quentin Hoover, and I got to say I think they captured the essence of this card pretty darn well there. I like it. All right, and then the other one is the this one also by Quentin Hoover. Nice, and it's actually thematically it's pretty darn similar. The difference being the the creature that the tree is going after is much more prominent in the artwork. So this particular artwork depicts a person on horseback. They're riding a black horse. It clearly it actually looks very similar to. I mean, the image that this is reminding me of is Prince Charming on his horse in Sleeping Beauty, like rushing through the forest and like the briar patches. That's what I'm seeing here. But it's a figure with a green cloak that's billowing behind him, on a black horse that is rearing up, presumably in fear, at a tree that is now is bending down to, well, again, seemingly to attack this creature or this person. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this particular artwork is there are some vines or potentially moss growing on the tree that almost look like a face. Almost, so it has this kind of this one little inkling or suggestion of humanity in this otherwise what's clearly just a tree. It's just a tree ass tree, and that face looks like it's screaming with its mouth open. Imagine Timoret. It looks fairly similar to that. The other thing that's cool about this one, compared to the previous art, so version 2 versus version 1, we're looking at the roots of the tree are clearly uh, little feet. So it appears as though the roots have actually ripped up out of the ground and it's allowing this tree folk to actually walk forward. And so it looks like this horse could probably outrun this tree just because the tree is very large. It looks almost like a willow. Um, so the tree is really, really big. Presumably it's not super fast, but at the same time, that horse better run because this thing is going to come after it. Unlike the other one where it looked as though the trees were still rooted. Um, Also, a fun fact with this particular image in the foreground, you can see another root as though there was another tree folk just out of frame that is also coming after the the figure on horseback, which would make sense because, like I said at the very, very top, we're looking at Yavimaya Ancients, plural, not singular. Also, version number 2 has different flavor text, so let's take a look at that. We orphans of Findhorn have found no welcome in this alien place. And that's attributed to Tiviti of Kelsinko, Elvish Hunter. Oh, interesting. So I don't know the exact story of Findhorn, but I do know that cards like Findhorn Elf, Findhorn Elder are out there and have been out there for a long time. So I know that Findhorn is a location, I believe, on Dominaria because that's where so much of the old storyline took place. So it looks to me as though The expression orphans of Findhorn leads me to believe that either Findhorn, actually, that leads me to believe that Findhorn was destroyed. So if you know the story better than I do, please comment in the comments below if you're on YouTube. Also, you can hit me up on Discord if you want to, tell me why I'm wrong. I would love that, please. I also stream over on Twitch. Feel free to hop into the channel there and be like, "Hey man, I was listening to your podcast. Here's what actually happened with Findhorn." That'd be fantastic. If you wanna hook me up, I would love to do that. I would absolutely love to have that conversation. But yeah, so Findhorn clearly got wrecked somehow, or at the very least, people were exiled from it. So these orphans of Findhorn, of whom Taaveti, Taaveti, is among them. So the idea that these people have lost their home one way or another. They've lost Findhorn, and now they are trying to find a new place to live. And the very landscape, the trees themselves, have made it clear that they are not welcome here in Yavimaya. Um, that's fascinating stuff. I love that. So yeah, this has been an interesting one. This is a pretty cool card. It's not super playable, like I said, but of all the older cards out there, it's not the worst I've seen. The mana cost is a little high by today's standards, but it is a 2/7 right out of the get-go. And 7 is one of those numbers that when you see that on a stat line, either as power or toughness, that's usually going to make some kind of impact. At the very least, people are going to have to do some combat math when they're facing off against this thing. So that's something. Plus, anytime you have the flexibility to adjust power and toughness, that's pretty darn cool. The fact that it's a two, you have to pay two toughness to get one power is a little bit of a bummer. I think if this was pay one green, it's +1/-1 until end of turn, that would be a very different story. I think that would be, yeah, that would be better off, I believe. Anyway, cool, cool. This is interesting stuff. Thanks so much for hanging out, guys. I appreciate it. And this has been Overthinking MTG. Like I mentioned, I'm over on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhocks42. Please come hang out over there. And actually, one of these days, I'm going to start live streaming these recordings. So heads up, keep an eye out for that. And if you press that follow button, you'll get notices as soon as I'm live. And that means a lot. I'd appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. I will catch you next time.